Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host Ilyas Bulbulia and I'll be with you for the next hour. As our regular viewers are aware, the Free Legal Advice Show provides you, our viewers, the opportunity to call in and ask us any questions that you have on any aspect of English law. On this show, I should be able to cover a vast diverse range of matters relating to English law. Matters ranging from immigration law, criminal law, family law, whatever your queries are, as long as they relate to English law, please do feel free to call on the number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, you can send me a message on the mobile number, a WhatsApp message, text message on the mobile number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Just a couple of minor points before we get going. Obviously, on a live show, it's not possible to take very detailed information, instructions from our viewers who call in. Now, if it transpires that your matter is quite complex and I need to have a more in-depth discussion with you, then I will ask you to leave your number with the control room and I will try and call you back after the show's over and I can have a more thorough discussion with you at that stage. Likewise, sometimes we get calls from viewers, more so I think with immigration matters where maybe they've had a refusal, maybe there's a document that they want me to look at, or for me to advise properly, I need to look at the document. Maybe it's a refusal letter, whatever it is. Maybe I need to look at documents before I can give you proper thorough advice. Now, if that's the case, if your matter's complex or I need to see your documents before I can advise you, what I will do is ask you to leave your number with the control room and I will have a more thorough discussion with you off air. Now, this is a free legal advice show and any advice we give you outside the show as well in relation to the matters that you have concerns about, that's absolutely free of charge as well. So please don't be concerned about any fees or invoices there. Okay, as always, we have a number of messages which have started coming through on our WhatsApp service. So we've got callers who are sending their messages through, which I'm going to start going through. But as I said at the outset, if you want to speak to me live on air, fantastic. Please do pick up the phone and give me a ring on that landline number 01924 231 083 so I can have a discussion with you live on air as well. This week we've had a couple of actually emails coming in during the week and I've been asked to answer the queries that have been raised by email during the show. So let me start the show by dealing with one of the emails that came in a few days ago. Interesting question, slightly unusual question. And what our viewer is asking, very topical with Ramadan having started or about to start. What our viewer is asking is in relation to donations that people make, and in particular, donations made by somebody who is in the UK in receipt of benefits. And specifically, what our viewer is asking is somebody who's in receipt of benefits or disability payments, and they want to make donations. And the viewer's given examples, whether it's sadaqah, zakat, or whatever the donations are. They want to make these donations. What should they be aware of in terms of DWP and how they would view somebody who is in receipt of benefits making donations? Interesting question. And as I said, it's topical because it's the month of Ramadan where people will be looking at, making as much in terms of donations as possible. Certainly, most people do their zakat calculations during the month of Ramadan and make the zakat payments in Ramadan. So it's a very topical, interesting question. Now, the starting point is this, that in terms of benefits, there are two different types of benefits. There are means-tested benefits and there are non-means tested benefits. So some people qualify for benefits because they have low income. Other people qualify for benefits irrespective of their income. Classic example is somebody who's in receipt of disability benefits. So it could be disability living allowance, it could be PIP, it could be carer's allowance. Those benefits, the non-means tested benefits, you're eligible for them irrespective of your means. It's because of your circumstances that you are eligible. Now, as far as that latter category is concerned, and if I take disability benefits as an example, somebody in receipt of DLA or PIP, as far as that category is concerned, they are non-means tested benefits. So there is no DWP involvement there at all. So there's no reason that the DWP would want to look at the donations that you've made, because it's got nothing to do with your income at all. So there's no issue there. In terms of the first category, where you're in receipt of means tested benefits, such as, let's say, universal credit or working tax credit, child tax credit, some other form of benefits which are means tested. As far as that's concerned, in practice, DWP will not look at donations. So it's entirely up to you what you give in terms of donations. Now, there is a very, very small issue where if you have a lot in savings and you are seen to be disposing of your savings so that you come below the threshold for savings and you become eligible for benefits, it's only in those very, very extreme circumstances that DWP may want to look at how you spent your money. But that's in an extreme situation where DWP take the view that you're disposing of your assets in order to qualify for benefits. But in practice, in reality, with donations, genuine donations, that is not an issue at all. The issue arises where, let's say, for example, you've got £10,000 in savings and you give £3,000-4,000 away to your friend or to your family so that you come under the threshold for qualifying for that means tested benefit. That's an issue where you are on purpose getting rid of your savings, giving it to friends and family. Yes, that's an issue. But here what we have is something which is completely different. This is giving to charity, and in my experience, there's no issue there at all. Now, I hope that answers your question in relation to somebody who's got somebody who's receiving benefits and wants to make various different types of donations. In my experience, there should be no problem there at all. Hope that answers your question. But as always, if you're not sure, please do come back to me and I will deal with that question in more detail. Okay, let's look at some of the other questions which have been coming in on WhatsApp. And as I've said, you can continue to send messages in on WhatsApp, which is fantastic, on that mobile number. But if you do want to give us a ring live on air, please feel free to pick up the phone and give me a ring and we can have a discussion live on air. Let's look at the next question that's come in on WhatsApp. The question is, hello sir, me and my husband both are students. So since 2019, we are now parents. I think the baby was born in December 2020. So only a few months ago. Want to apply for my baby's visa. And what can we do in terms of the baby's visa? Now, and whether it's possible to increase the stay in the United Kingdom. Right, look, this question has two strands to it. One is students who are in the United Kingdom, husband and wife who are in the United Kingdom, who give birth, gives birth to a child whilst they are here in the United Kingdom. First question really is, what should we do in terms of a visa for that baby? Now, the starting point is the Home Office does not require parents to apply for a visa for the baby when the baby is born. The only time when you're required to apply for leave to remain, for a visa for the child, is actually when you extend your visa. So let's say, for example, in this example, you've got a visa which is valid for the next year or so. So in 2022, your visa expires. Up until 2022, there's no requirement on you to apply for a visa for your child. You can do nothing. And I would advise you, if you're not leaving the country, there's no need to do anything. There's no need to incur additional expenses there. So you don't need to do anything. However, when your visa expires, in our example next year, you will be applying for an extension of your visa, I assume. Now, assuming that's the case, then at that stage, you should include your child in the application as well. So you will be applying, husband and wife, for your extension, maybe as a student, maybe as a student dependent. And at that stage, you include the child as a dependent as well. So you wait until your visa needs renewing. So in essence, that's the position where a child is born in the United Kingdom whilst you're here with a visa. Now, the second aspect of your case is how can we extend our visa? Now, the problem is that you can't really extend your visa based on your child, because if you're from another country, you've simply got a student visa here and your child is born in the UK, you can't extend your visa based on the child. There is a category, but that only applies where the child has been living in the United Kingdom for 7 years. So where a child has been living in the United Kingdom for 7 years, the parents could apply on the basis that the child has established his or her family life in the United Kingdom. So, but that's only applicable after the child reaches the age of 7, 8, etc. So you can't really make your extension application or base your application based on a child who's 6 months old or 1 year old. So on the baby front, yes, by all means, when you apply for an extension for the child as well. But you can't base your visa extension application based on the child. You would need to look at other options. And after we come back from our break, I'll look at those other options, because this is quite topical, because students have a number of options now. So I'll look at, after we come back, look at the possibility of extending under the student route. If you've graduated, extending under the new graduate category which is coming out, or alternatively looking at coming out of the student route and going into some kind of work permit type employment. So we'll look at that in greater detail after we come back from our short break. We'll be back in the next couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. If you have any questions on English law, English legal matters, please feel free to call on the landline number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, and this is very popular with our viewers, if you want to send me a message on WhatsApp or just send me a normal text message on the mobile number, that's absolutely fine as well. And I appreciate that legal matters sometimes are confidential. People don't necessarily want to come live on air to discuss their legal confidential matters. So they do want to send WhatsApp messages in, which is fine. We have a number of messages coming through as we are live today. But by all means, it's always good to hear your voice. So please do pick up the phone and give me a ring if you wish to speak to me as well. Now, let's go back to some of the questions that have been coming in. Now, just before the break, I looked at the question from somebody who's here as a student, partners here as well, and they've had a baby. And I dealt with what should be done as far as the baby's visa is concerned. But I think the bigger concern that our viewer had is what can be done to extend their visa in the United Kingdom. And I said, look, after the break, I'll look at the real options that you have. Now, and this is what I say to my clients, that look, there are options for students, but by no means are they easy options that you can easily sort of satisfy the requirements of. Now, one is that you simply extend your student visa, and I'll come back to that. The other is you leave the student visa route and you go into the skilled worker route or the old work permit route, or this is the easiest, you extend your visa under the new graduate route, which is coming out in July. Now, so realistically, those are the options. If you're a student and let's say you're not going to get your degree, your bachelor's degree or master's degree this summer, then you're not going to be able to go into the graduate route, because the graduate route requires you to get your degree this summer, so with this leave to remain. the current leave to remain. If you're not going to graduate this year, your option, unfortunately, is simply going to be to simply extend your student visa. And my view is, if you can extend your student visa, get to a stage where maybe even next year you do get your bachelor's degree or master's degree, it's worth doing. The reason it's worth doing is after you've got your degree, you will be able to go into this new graduate visa route, which is coming out in July. So that's what I would suggest you do. Extend your student visa if you're not going to graduate this summer. Second option, if you are going to graduate this summer, fantastic. From July onwards, you're going to be able to go into the new graduate visa route that's coming out. It's going to be a very simple visa. All you're going to be showing is that you have graduated. I think there might be a small amount in savings that you might need to show. The detailed guidance hasn't come out, so I can't give you more precise information, but there might be a minimal amount of savings, such as £700-800 per person that you might need to show. But it's going to be a very easy route for you to go into, and that will give you the opportunity to work in the United Kingdom for 2 years legally. No restrictions on the hours you work, no restrictions on the kind of work you do. So that's going to be a fantastic new route for students who are in the United Kingdom currently, or who are looking at coming to the United Kingdom to study. Those who graduate here with a bachelor's or a master's will be able to work for 2 years. And I personally think that's going to make the student visa route for the United Kingdom for our universities, it's going to make it an excellent option. Now, the third option that I mentioned, which is maybe the most difficult, which is to go into the skilled worker route. Now, ultimately, my view is, whether you're here as a student or whether you're here or you manage to get onto this graduate scheme that's coming out in July, ultimately, all these visas are temporary visas. Ultimately, unfortunately, you do hit a dead end. These visas come to an end. And you must look at moving into a category which leads to settlement. And that category, in reality, is the skilled worker route, which used to be known as the work permit. So if you're studying or if you go into this graduate route and work for 2 years, that's fantastic. But always keep at the back of your mind that these are temporary routes. You need to look at, if possible, going into the skilled worker route. And that's a category which ultimately will lead to settlement in the United Kingdom. There are other options that you can look at. If you manage to get married in the UK, it's always possible to move into the spouse route. If there are circumstances which are such in your home country that you can't return, there may be the possibility of applying for asylum, etc. And this is something that became relevant for many of our clients who were here from Syria studying. A lot of them were here as medical students who were about to finish their courses, and they found that the circumstances were such in their home country that they couldn't return. So we had to consider, once their studies came to an end, we had to consider those kind of options. But in reality, the options as a student are: you extend as a student, you go into the graduate scheme, which is coming out, you go into the work permit scheme, and to a lesser extent, you might want to consider, if your circumstances permit, going into the spouse visa category, or if there are problems back in your home country, looking at some kind of asylum claim. But my view is, get advice on your options well in advance, so you know what you need to do, and you also know what preparation you need to do to go with that new visa route. Hope that answers your question. Okay, let's look at the next question that's come in. A number of WhatsApp messages come in. I do want to try and go in order, to be quite honest. Let's just look at the next one. Our viewer asks, hi, I would like to know, I'm married in Pakistan. I want to bring my wife to the United Kingdom. What do I need to know? What kind of English test does she have to do? How long does the process take? How much does it cost? When she gets to the UK, do I have to apply to register her marriage here? Kindly reply back. I really appreciate that. And that's from Brother Imran. Quite a detailed question, to be quite honest, a number of different questions. And to set the background, this is where Brother Imran here, like many of our viewers, somebody who's got married abroad. Here, the situation is that he's got married in Pakistan and wants to sponsor his wife to come to the United Kingdom. And as I've covered on our previous shows, there are numerous requirements that need to be fulfilled. So what I'll do is I'll answer your specific question, and then I'll take you through very quickly the different requirements that need to be fulfilled. And I've got a list of the requirements here. And even after the show, if you want to email us, I can email the list of things that you need to be getting together. But let's look at your specific question. What is the English test that needs to be done by your wife? Well, the test is known as the A1 Life Skills Test that needs to be done. Now, if you just Google A1 Life Skills Pakistan, there'll be 2 official websites which will come up where these tests can be done. And I normally advise my clients just to go onto the British Council website, or there's a specific IELTS website. And from there, you'll be able to book the A1 Life Skills Test. And this is the lowest test as far as English tests are concerned, where your wife, in this case, would have to have very basic understanding of English. Now, if she's studied at all in English at school, college, university, she won't have a problem at all. Now, if she has some difficulty in passing the test, she will need to go on a course. I'll deal with this in greater detail after we've taken our next call. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Hello?
Yep.
Hello, hi. You're live on air?
Yeah, I'm watching right now.
Yeah, thank you. What's your question, brother?
Yeah, so I'm a final year graduate student. So I'll be graduate this year. So I just would like to know how is going to be this PSW visa application,
Yeah.
and like when I have to start apply, and like what would be the cost and what main requirements?
Okay, I
That's my question.
When have you graduated now, or are you about to
No,
graduate?
I'm the final year student, so I'll be graduate this summer.
In this summer, right? Okay. And when does your visa finish?
My visa gonna be finished, I think, September, end of the September this year.
Fantastic. That's fantastic, because you potentially qualify for this visa. And this visa will become live, or go live from the 1st of July. That's what they're saying at the moment, from the 1st of July. So the moment you've graduated, you've got your degree, you will be able to switch from your student visa into this graduate visa. It used to be called the PSW visa, the post-study work visa. I think the label that they're now going to go with is the graduate visa, and it goes live from the 1st of July. Now, the question you ask is, what do you need to do? How much is it going to cost? Now,
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. The reason is they haven't told us yet. What they haven't done so far is published the guidance for this visa. And in my experience, what they seem to be doing is publishing the guidance about 2 to 3 weeks before the scheme goes live. So I am expecting the detailed guidance to come out in June for the visa to go live in July. Now, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. In terms of the visa fee, there's going to be an application fee, there's going to be an NHS fee. I suspect combined, the visa fee is going to be in the region of about £1,500, application fee and the NHS fee for 2 years. I think you're looking at around £1,500 to £2,000. And I think the same rules will apply in terms of savings. You must hold your savings either for 90 days or 3 months. But we haven't seen the guidance on that yet. In terms of when you're going to be applying, it's going to be as soon as you graduate. So my view is, look out for the new guidance which comes out in July. That will tell us what you need to show. And I think it's simply a case of your bank statements. Do we need to show savings or not? That's the only thing. But in terms of fees, I think we're looking at around £1,500 to £2,000. We'll have more detail, I think, in June. So sorry, I can't give you more information now. There's nothing more available at the moment. But thank you very much for that call. Very topical. And what I will do is keep an eye out for any new developments as far as this is concerned. We're taking a short break. Inshallah, we'll be back in the next couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. On the Free Legal Advice Show, if you've got any questions relating to English law, please feel free to call us on the landline number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, you can send a message on the mobile number that appears at the bottom of the screen. We've got numerous messages that have been coming in, so I'll try and deal with those as we go through the show. But by all means, please feel free to pick up the phone and give me a ring directly as well, if that's an easier way to get advice. Okay, just going back to the question that I looked at just before the break, which is somebody who wants to sponsor their wife to come to the United Kingdom, looking at what the requirements are. Particular question related to the English test, and I explained that the test is the A1 life skills test that your wife would need to do. And as far as that test is concerned, it's valid for 2 years, and it's a relatively easy test to pass. If your wife has studied in English at all, she shouldn't have a problem. If she hasn't, she might just need to go on a course. In my experience, it takes about 2 to 3 months to get up to the standard required to pass the A1 life skills test. Okay, so that's one of the requirements. One of the other questions that you ask is, how long does the process take? Once you submit the application, normally you get a decision within about 3 months, maximum about 4 months. It's rare for the application to take much longer than that. Normally it's between 3 to 4 months. Another specific question that you ask is, you're married to your wife already in Pakistan, but you're asking that when she comes here, do you need to register the marriage here in the UK? The answer to that is simply no. The marriage that you've undertaken in Pakistan is recognised as a valid marriage here in the UK. So there's no need to register your marriage separately here. So that's the answer to your 3 specific questions that you've raised in relation to the English test, whether you need to register your marriage here, how long it takes. Now, let me run through very, very quickly what the main requirements are. And I appreciate we've got a number of other messages coming in as well, but let me run through this quickly. Other requirements. Look, the way I look at it is there are certain things, certain documents that you need to collate from your wife's home country. English test, we've talked about that. The TB test, what she'd need to do, it's valid for 6 months. And the marriage certificate. You're married already, so you'll have the formal marriage certificate. So certain documents you need to get from there. What do you need to do from here? There are 2 or 3 main things that you need to do from here. One is you need to satisfy the financial requirement. And in my experience, that's where the main problem is, meeting the financial requirement. If you're employed, you need to be earning £18,600 per annum. You need to show the income over 6 months. If you're self-employed, there are different rules which apply for people who are self-employed. If they're sole traders, there are different rules. If they're a director in a limited company, there are different rules. If you've got rental income, if you've got dividend income, if you've got savings, there are different rules. So it's difficult to run through all the different scenarios here. But what you should bear in mind is that there is a financial requirement. Normally, you need to be earning £18,600 per annum. There's an exemption to that as well if you're in receipt of carer's allowance or disability benefits. Take advice on how you're going to meet the financial requirement. So that's one aspect of the application, in my view, the main aspect of the application that you've got to get right. The other 2, you've got to show that there's sufficient accommodation for your wife in the United Kingdom. Normally, it's not an issue. If you own a house, if you're renting a house, or if your parents or family members own a house, as long as there is one room which is free, available for you and your wife, that's sufficient. So accommodation, in my experience, doesn't really cause a problem. It's mainly the financial requirement which you need to get right. Okay, there is an accommodation requirement which you need to satisfy, but it's not that difficult. The third thing that you need to focus on here is demonstrating that you're in a genuine and subsisting relationship. Now, what the Home Office has done, and this is fantastic news for applicants, for lawyers, anybody involved in this process, is that they've reduced the kind of documents that they want in terms of demonstrating that the marriage is genuine and subsisting. So all you need to do is show a copy of your passport. You take a photocopy of your passport to show when you've gone back to your home country, in this case, Pakistan, when you've gone back to see your wife. So the Home Office wants to look at the fact that you've got married. You know, have you visited your wife again? If it's been a year since you've got married, normally you're expected to visit your wife. Now, that's all well and good. At the moment, there are travel restrictions. Home Office accepts that you may not be able to travel at the moment, or it may not have been easy to travel in the last 6 months. So there is some flexibility there. But generally speaking, when things are normal, things are calm, if you've been married for a year, it's expected that you will go back and visit your wife. And that's proof of your marriage being genuine and subsisting. In addition to that, the only other thing that the Home Office wants to look at is your photographs, your wedding photographs, your photographs together, and your post-wedding photographs, casual photographs, where, let's say, you've gone out together to a restaurant, to a park, etc. You've taken selfies together. That's the evidence of the relationship that the Home Office looks at. They're not too strict on the evidence now. So they're not asking for call logs, message history, money transfer receipts, wedding cards, wedding anniversary cards, Valentine cards, etc. They're not asking for that, those kind of documents anymore. They're simply looking at, look, you've got married. Have you been back to see your wife if it's been more than a year? If you have, let's see your photocopy of your passport showing that you've been back, and they want to see your photographs together. So it's much easier now to demonstrate that the relationship is genuine and subsisting. Out of all that, in practice, in my experience, the key thing is you have to get the financial requirement right. Hopefully that answers your question. I know it's a difficult issue, but with the time we have, I've tried to go through the main issues that you face when sponsoring your wife to come to the UK. If you're not clear at all about anything I've said, by all means, give me a ring and I'll take you through this in greater detail. Okay, let's look at some more questions that have been coming in. Our viewer says, Assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm applying for indefinite leave to remain for my wife in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to use the same day service. Specific question relating to evidence of husband and wife living together, correspondence received at the same address. It says, can I use the same bill, the electricity bill, which we've received over the last 2.5 years? Received one in January 20, one in June 20, both same type of bills. Will they count as 2 pieces of correspondence? Now, my experience is it will, but I think that's really the max in my experience. You can't use, this is an extreme example, you can't just submit for the year 2019, 2020, 3 electricity bills for 19, 3 electricity bills for 20. So you can't do that and say, look, I've given you 6 bills, but you'll get away with using 2 electricity bills and using that as 2 pieces of evidence. The Home Office is generally quite flexible. Now, the point is try and get a variety of documents. So it's the source of the document. So if 2 are from the electricity company, you could get away with 2 from the bank and 2 from your gas provider. Now, try and look at what kind of documents you receive. So you get your standard documents, your gas, electricity, water, telephone, TV license, council tax, standard stuff. But in addition to that, you do get other documents as well. For example, you'll be getting your bank statements over the last 2 years. Doctor's letters you'll be getting, hospital letters you'll be getting. You might be getting a P60 which has an address on it. You might be getting, if you've applied for insurance, there might be car insurance documents that are coming to your home address. You might be ordering things online, so you might be getting invoices as well. That's not fantastic evidence, but that's still evidence. So try and look beyond the standard utility bills that you get if you're struggling. So beyond looking at just gas, electricity, water, telephone, TV license, look at the other things that you get. Your bank statements, your car insurance documents, doctor's letters, hospital letters. And if you're still struggling for documents, what you can do is you can get a letter, a specific letter, for example, from your doctor or from your local counsellor who says, look, I know the couple and I can confirm that they are together, and as far as I know, they do live at this address, and I've had dealings with them over the last 2 years. So as a last resort, instead of your bills, you get a specific letter from a professional, such as a doctor, a counsellor, a school teacher who's teaching your child. And then dealing with the evidence of correspondence in that way. And I hope that answers that question. Okay, let's look at the next question that's coming on WhatsApp. Interesting question. Our viewer says, my son is a British citizen. He is married to a lady who has no status in this country. So I'm assuming the lady has overstayed, has no visa, no leave to remain in this country. She's been in the country for 9 years. She is from Somalia. Can she apply for indefinite leave to remain using the marital status of my son? Okay, we get these questions quite regularly where somebody, for whatever reason, something's gone wrong, whatever's happened, somebody is an overstayer in the United Kingdom. And then over time, they get married to, or they form a relationship with somebody who is British. And this normal question that we're asked is, based on that relationship, can this lady get status? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because if there are children from the relationship, the child would be British. Based on the child, yes, 100%, she would be able to get a visa to live in the United Kingdom. Not indefinite leave, but a visa to live in the United Kingdom based on a child that is British. But simply based on the relationship, even if you formally get married at the registry office, that won't be sufficient for this lady from Somalia who's been here for 9 years to get leave to remain. Now, we're going to be taking a break in the next minute or so. What I will do after we come back is I'll address this in greater detail, tell you what the options are in terms of what can be done. So I'll do that after we come back from our short break. Inshallah, we'll be back in the next couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. To speak to me live on air, you can ring on the landline number, or by all means, like many of our viewers do, please do send me a message on WhatsApp with your query and I will answer your query live on air. Just before I took a break, we were looking at the lady from Somalia who's been here for 9 years and has married a person who is British. Now, the short answer to that question was, in terms of the lady from Somalia, there has to be a baby from the relationship. If there's a baby, the baby would be a British citizen and it would be easy to qualify for leave to remain based on the child. Now, let's say there's no child from the relationship. Is it worth applying? Is it worth trying to apply? My view is there's no point even trying to apply, because the test that the Home Office applies, where there is no child, is so high, the threshold is so high, it's more or less impossible to satisfy. There has to be insurmountable obstacles before the visa is going to be granted. Insurmountable obstacles in the relationship continuing. And it's more or less impossible to satisfy. My view is that if there's no child, there's no point applying. There's no point even registering the marriage here in the UK. One of the options that you can look at is this. If all the other requirements can be met, one of the options you might want to look at is whether it's worth going back to the home country and applying for a proper spouse visa from there. That's one option. Now, I have noticed that the lady is from Somalia. If there are circumstances in Somalia which mean that it's difficult to return, you might want to take advice on whether it's worth pursuing some kind of asylum claim. But at the moment, as things stand, there's no point applying unless there is a child. Okay, let's look at the next question that's come in. And our viewer says, I am settled in the United Kingdom as a member of an EEA national, as a family member, I think you should say. My child was born in the UK when I had pre-settled status. I now have indefinite leave to remain. I wish to apply for my child to become British. What do I do? Okay, very straightforward. Child was born when you had pre-settled status. You didn't have indefinite leave. You've got indefinite leave now. Child was born in the UK. Now, what you do is the child isn't automatically British. The child would have to be registered as British. And in order to register the child as British, there's a form online. It's called Form AN that needs to be completed. It's a fairly simple process. It does have a fee of around £1,000. So you register the child as British using Form AN, and the child qualifies for registration as British because the child was born here. You now, as a parent, have a permanent status. Once you get your child registered as British, then you apply for a British passport in the normal way. So what I say to clients normally is there's a two-step process. Don't apply for the passport straight away. Register your child as British using Form AN. Once you've got that, then use the normal passport process. Taking a short break. Inshallah, we'll be back after the azan. See you then. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. If you want to speak to me live on air, you can ring on the landline number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, by all means, do send me a message on the mobile number. And we've got many messages coming through on that WhatsApp number. Okay, let's look at the next message that's come in. It's quite a long message. I'll try and read the message out. It's from our brother Muhammad Raza, and I'll read the message out. It's about visitor applications, and then I will try and address that message or the questions posed in greater detail. Our brother says, I'm watching your program on Muslim TV, British Muslim TV. MashaAllah, you're doing nice work. I've got one basic question to ask about immigration law. I am a British resident. I'm a homeowner. I want to sponsor my mum and dad to visit me in the United Kingdom. Absolutely understandable. Mum and dad, they're in their 60s. I think our brother has said that they are 65 years old. Retired. They have no income of their own. So the son here supports them as far as their daily expenses are concerned. The question is, what's the best way to apply for them to come to the United Kingdom? What documents do we need from here? What documents do mum and dad need? So it's a question about visitor application. Somebody whose parents are abroad, mum and dad who are abroad in their 60s, who want to come to the United Kingdom. The key point here that our viewer has made, and it's been very candid about it, is, look, my mum and dad, they've got no income. I support them in terms of their expenses. They've got a house there. They've got their own house, but they have no independent income. And that's something that's been highlighted right at the outset. So now, what I've noticed in the last few months with the travel restrictions that we have is that there aren't many visitor applications being made. And My view at the moment is this, that if you are planning to sponsor mum and dad, any other family member to come to the United Kingdom, my view is, look, hold off at the moment. Let's just wait for travel restrictions to be lifted, maybe possibly in June, July. That might be a better time to apply. I get the impression at the moment, looking at some of the decisions coming through, that the Home Office have become even stricter with visitor applications. They seem to be rejecting more and more applications. And I've noticed that more over the last few months during the lockdown and the restriction on travel that we've had. Certainly, for example, if you take prime example, Pakistan, on the red list, so they're not able to travel anyway. So there's no point trying to apply now whilst the country is on the red list. And even if the country is not on the red list, I don't think it's the best time to be applying for a visitor visa. Certainly, if you think about it, we've had restrictions in place in terms of movement, in terms of meeting people, etc. Okay, slowly they're being lifted and we can finally go shopping, etc. But look, it's not the current right climate to make a visitor application. But let's say in the next couple of months, you want to make a visitor application. The best way to look at this is to look at what documents do we need from here and what documents do your parents need to be submitting. Now, the easy part is your part. What do you need from here? All you're really demonstrating is that you're able to look after your parents financially in the United Kingdom. So you're able to maintain and accommodate them. That's what they say in the immigration rules. The visitor has to be maintained and accommodated in the United Kingdom without recourse to public funds. In practice, all that means is that you must have sufficient income, sufficient savings, and sufficient accommodation to be able to look after them. Now, in my experience, if you're working, even if it's part-time, 20 hours a week, etc., you've got other income coming in, maybe even if it's working tax credit, child tax credits, normally anybody who's working and who has a bit of savings. So what I tend to say to clients is, look, as long as you're working and if you've got savings, so if you're sponsoring one person, if you've got savings of, let's say, about £1,500 to £2,000, if you're sponsoring two people, mum and dad, you've got savings of £2,500 to £3,000, that is more than sufficient. So whatever your employment income is, even if it's not significant, as long as you've got a bit in savings, a couple of £1,000, £2,500 to £3,000, if you're sponsoring two people, the Home Office won't raise an issue with your ability to maintain your parents, to maintain your visitors who are coming to the UK. As far as accommodation is concerned, because what I said is you have to be able to maintain and accommodate your visitors who are coming to the UK. As far as accommodation is concerned, normally all that's required is for you to say, look, I own this property, or I've got a tenancy agreement, so there is stable accommodation here. And you need to explain, look, we've got 3 bedrooms, these are the people living in the house. Normally, you can tell, 3-bedroom house with a kitchen, 2 other rooms, should be able to accommodate something in the region of 8-9 people. So accommodation is not normally a problem. On the income front, you're showing what your income is and you're showing a bit of savings. On the accommodation front, you're showing that you're either the owner or you're a tenant in the property and just explaining how many rooms there are, who lives there at the moment. Generally speaking, that's the easy part. That's sufficient to demonstrate your ability as a sponsor to maintain and accommodate your parents who are coming to the UK. So let me run through very, very quickly what you would submit as a sponsor. Copy of your passport, 3 months wage slips, 3 months bank statements, any other savings you've got, 3 months bank statements for the savings account, a proof of ownership of your property, and an explanation in terms of the fact that you're sponsoring your parents, they're going to come and live with you. The tricky part, unfortunately, is to do with your parents. How do you demonstrate that they will go back? The problem is this, that the Home Office, when assessing whether your parents will go back or not, is to look at what are the incentives that will make them go back. And the particular problem here is when they look at incentives, what they're looking at is what's their financial circumstances like. If they're well off, they will go back. But what I would do in your particular situation, it's show that your parents own property. If you have any other family there, explain who they are. Put evidence in there as to who they are, their ID cards, their passport, any other proof that there is immediate family there, children, grandchildren, brothers, sisters. So rely on the fact that they own property there. Show evidence of that. Show evidence of other family there. If they've got pension income, etc., show that. If not, show the fact that you are the one supporting them. Show the money transfer, show the receipt of money there, and make it quite clear. I've been supporting them for a long period of time. They've got their own house. I've been supporting them for a long period of time. I will continue to do that. Now, despite all that, if the application is refused, we would then, although there's no right of appeal, there is a way of challenging the refusal. We'd have to look at whether it can be challenged or not. The thing is, you need to be as detailed as possible. And in addition to that, the most important thing is, don't mislead the Home Office. Tell them exactly as it is. And if the application is refused, we can look at a challenge in that decision at that stage. So that, in essence, is how you deal with a visitor application. But that, unfortunately, brings us to the end of the show. Inshallah, we'll be back next week on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Until then, Assalamu alaikum